Very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is Sunday, and that means it's time for your double bill of Flux Motorsport TV action. Starting, of course, with the Formula Renault Championship. Here, live and direct from Belgium's second circuit, although it was the very first circuit. We are, of course, talking about the Zolder GP circuit. Just getting started here in qualification, 18 minutes remaining, so most drivers just about to start their first hot laps. As Taijo crosses the line, it seems first off. Something must have happened during that one. Doesn't look as though it's registered, and he goes massively wide into turn one. Going to want to try and lock that down. Further on in the session, casually steps out as though he's coming out from the pits and almost blocking. So as you join us, we have got 7 drivers on the grid today. One driver, unfortunately, not going to be participating in the rest of this championship, it seems, which is Speedigon Hogg. He was 6th in the championship, but after a couple of absent attendances, he's now being taken from the standings. He does have the opportunity to rejoin, of course, but it is going to start him right at the very bottom. Also, it seems Dirk Diggler is off on his holidays, unable to make it. He's not going to feature this race and potentially next race as well. But he's currently positioned 4th in the championship, so things are definitely going to start getting interesting outside of the top 3 here in the Formula Renaults. And whilst we've got a little bit of time, let's have a little run through the championship standings as they are, just in case you haven't seen them on our social media feeds. Bruce Law sits at the top of the championship on 157 points. Then we've got to go down to second place with Taijo 1212 on 133, with Fast AF Gamer sat just 1 point behind him in third place on 132. Then, of course, as I mentioned, Dirk Diggler in 4th position. That's likely to change over the next race and going into next week's as well. He's sat on 127 points with Rock G007 in 5th place behind him on 100. Then, after Speedigon Hogg's retirement from the championship, we look down to Luna Zodiac, who'll be looking to make some improvements. We've seen a vast increase in speed in his last few races, so expect him to be performing pretty well through this one. And then our newest drivers, Sub-Zero and Immortalis, making their way onto the grid, hoping to score some big points this time around. I know for a fact that Immortalis, through the practice sessions, is looking pretty tidy. So now that the race has been introduced, we've had a run through the championship standings. I'd like to introduce my co-host for this morning's race. It is, of course, Lecky. How are you doing today, Lecky?
Good morning, Murphy. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for having me here. Very happy to be here for our Formula Renault race. You know I love these, Murphy.
Most definitely. It's going to be an interesting one, this as well. The Zolder circuit really is one of those sort of technical masterpieces. Really, really tricky circuit. Some double apex right turns that can catch a lot of drivers out. Some really high paced corners, and then a variance in chicanes. The first one, which we're just seeing Fast AF Gamer come through now, really fast, usually second or third gear, and then as he makes his approach around the left-hander, he's then going to approach the second chicane, which is much, much slower, much harder onto the brakes, but looks as though Fast AF Gamer is absolutely planted through there, not much oversteer, as he goes past somebody still waiting to warm up on the laps. Fast AF Gamer looking frightfully fast. A 117.788 is his hottest hot lap so far. Luna Zodiac not able to match it. 1.4 seconds off the pace in second place, with Immortalis just a few tenths behind him. Bruce Law doesn't look as though he's got warmed up yet, with Rock G as well falling back off the pace by quite a margin. We'll have to wait and see how these lap times improve. Sub-Zero yet to make a hot lap yet, as is Taijo. Sub-Zero still sat in the pits, but Taijo is out on track, so we'll have to wait and see what he produces. Now, Lecky's been running a few of these practice sessions, and what's been your observations throughout the practice sessions that you've been hosting, mate?
Well, I think with the current race conditions, with the dry conditions that we're likely to see here today, and the track temperatures being fairly warm, but not as hot as we've seen certainly at some of the warmer circuits at China or even in Italy. But it's still very punishing on tyres. That front left is always going to take a hit round at Zolder. Quick straights into either very sharp turns or fast turns. So the guys are really going to struggle here for tyres. Potentially, I've heard a two-stop strategy rumoured around the paddock, but I think some of the guys are going to try and push the envelope and see what they can get away with in terms of tyre changes here.
I think everybody will be optimistically hoping for a zero-stop strategy, but it is going to be unlikely, I think. As Lecky pointed out, the loading on that front left tyre is going to be pretty severe, and we'll have to wait and see how the lap times start to fall away when it comes down to race pace, when these guys are pushing pretty hard with turbulent air and other cars on track adjusting the lines. So it is going to be an interesting one. But if you like what you see here at Flux Motorsport and you'd like to join, make sure you get yourselves on over to our website where you'll be able to join our Discord server where we manage all championships and community events. That website, of course, as I mentioned each and every week, is fluxmotorsport.com. You'll see a link just on the top right hand side of your screen in order to join that. And as we approach the end of the season, there is definitely no better part to do so. Also, if you find yourself tuning in and out each and every week, but you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, make sure that you don't miss any of the action by hitting that subscribe button. And we do welcome any and all comments as well, either during or after the stream. So we've got 11 minutes, in fact just under 12 minutes remaining of this qualification session. Fast AF is still sat right on the tippy top of the qualifying board at the moment. We've seen Bruce Law's times not yet improving, so that's going to be one to watch, whereas Taijo has landed himself in 4th place. I'm going to expect those times to come down from Taijo as well. He's looked pretty handy around here. I'm expecting at least 1 minute 19s from him. And the Zodiac there, getting that front left wheel off the ground, it seemed.
Yeah, some drivers are going to have to watch it, I think, on some of these chicanes, Murphy, particularly Kleiner chicane, I believe that the first chicane is. It's very, very tempting to try and straight line through that, come down in 3rd and straight line it, and there's a tendency to get the car to completely lift off the track, which obviously is not the fastest way around.
Most definitely not, but I think one of the struggles that you get here at Zolder is, as you mentioned, trying to go straight through that chicane, and when you can pull it off, it's great, especially in qualification. But trying to do it in race, especially with cars nearby, is often a recipe for disaster. So you need to get out of that mantra when it comes to the race and try and adjust yourself for the cars that are also joining you on circuit. Looks as though Taijo has made that improvement that we were expecting, and he's exceeded my expectations, dropping in with a 118.3. It's not enough to challenge the lead of Fast AF Gamer for that pole position at the moment, but it's certainly getting closer, and it's put him on the front row provisionally with just over 10 minutes remaining. Immortalis also looking pretty quick, but I'm expecting his times to come down as well. We've seen at the very least low 119s from him through some of the practice sessions also. So we'll have to wait and see whether or not he can get a clean one out. It looks as though he's running in the turbulent air of Rock G at the moment. So maybe it'd be best for him to hold back, but it looks as though he's just going to maintain his track position at the moment and keep on flinging that car around in the Panasonic livery. Definitely one to watch, I'd say. Like Immortalis in the Panasonic, he's impressed in the GT1s, picking up a GT1 victory last Thursday, and looking pretty handy in all of his other leagues as well, racing in all 3 of our championships here at Flux Motorsport. A latecomer to the season, and certainly one to watch as we progress into next season.
Yeah, I think he's had a great start so far to his season. I mean, coming in halfway through. He's picked up a 1-2, I think, in the GT1s, so respected in the last 2 races. So really strong start. He's been up there challenging some of our quicker guys for the top spot. So no, he is pretty new to the Formula Renaults. He's struggling to try and get consistency, albeit his lap times are still pretty good. I think he might struggle a bit more in these than you've seen in some of the previous championship races. But like you said, a bit of an undercard. A bit of a one to watch, I think, here.
Yeah, I think we'll see come race 8 of this season how far he can get himself up as a latecomer to the championship. But it's certainly looking pretty quick, and this championship is definitely proving that we can get some speed out of these control pad players. Both him and Taijo racing on a control pad. I think all of the drivers opting for a wheel setup, but yeah, he can really get those pad players hooked up. I mean, I'm not sure about yourself, Lecky. I've tried a couple of times to race on a pad, and for me, it's somewhat impossible. Perhaps maybe the adjustments needed to be made to settings and stuff just to try and get it softened up. But I'm absolutely all over the place. Not that my rig racing is much better, but yeah, I really struggle to hook corners up on a control pad, and these guys must have some superb thumb control for it.
Oh yeah, absolutely terrible, James. All fingers and thumbs from my end.
Yeah, most definitely. So we're now approaching the final 7.5 minutes of qualification. Fast AF still sat on the top in provisional pole. Taijo remains alongside him on that first row. Luna Zodiac and Bruce Law battling it out. Immortalis therefore has dropped down into 5th place because of the lap from Bruce Law. Bruce Law, though, still 2 seconds off the qualification pace of Fast AF. Sub-Zero not making vast improvements either, but he'll be one to watch. Can definitely string a quick lap together. Our latest addition to the roster, driver from Siberia, I believe. So definitely going further afield here in the Flux Motorsport community.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you say that. They've got a bit of a strange relationship off track, both Bruce and Sub-Zero. Sub-Zero loving to try and to challenge Bruce in the paddock. Those two guys, a lot of fun together. But certainly Bruce being challenged here by some of the quicker drivers that are coming in. Like we said, Immortalis has come in there and started to challenge for it. GT3s, we've seen Bruce drop from 1st place at the start of the season. And I believe he's sat down in 4th place currently. So not a completely unblemished season from Bruce like we saw at the start. I think potentially a couple of quicker drivers now starting to come to the forefront and really mix things up. So it's going to be interesting to see how Bruce does today, but certainly we can't write him off in the Renaults.
I think what's been great to see as well is, I mean, we here at Flux Motorsport do like to challenge our drivers with our race settings, and we've seen some drivers come in from other communities and definitely rising up to the challenge. It's definitely an eye-opener when you're running on accelerated tyre wear. You've got to try and plan that race strategy. And also factoring in the damage aspect of it, where if you do make a mistake, it can be pretty punishing. But Immortalis has definitely taken to it. Sub-Zero just yet to find his feet, but expecting improvements from him. And as you mentioned, Bruce Law's previously unblemished record is now being challenged by some of these latest drivers that are coming in, and I think that's what's going to make Season 2 here at Flux Motorsport really a fantastic spectacle to watch.
Yeah, definitely, and that's certainly one of the things I enjoy most. I mean, like we said in the paddock, these guys are all sorts of fun, but they do help each other out with kind of setups, track knowledge, and advice and guidance as well. There's a whole host of information available that these guys share with each other, so that's really good to see.
And that is one of the great things that we find here at Flux Motorsport. We bring you the action in the championship races, but the things that you don't see behind the scenes is the community aspect of our drivers trying to help each other out. Everybody wants to be challenged and pushed as far as possible, and that's one of the great things that you get with a community such as this. Drivers sharing knowledge that they've got, trying to challenge each other, but also sharing those setup tips and tricks of the trade, as it was. But fantastic lap from Luna Zodiac. He's got even closer to Fast AF Gamer. That was a couple of laps ago. He now finds himself in 2nd place, so he's knocked Taijo down onto the 2nd row. Only 3/10 off the pace of Fast AF, so Fast AF is going to have to start really pushing himself. I'm not sure whether or not Luna Zodiac's going to go out for another bite of the cherry. He's still sat in the pit lane at the moment, but with 4 minutes remaining, he should be able to get another hot lap, or maybe even 2 in, depending on when he leaves those pits.
Well, just coming from the FP session, I know that Fast has He's capable of a 116. 116s aren't outside of his comfort zone here, but does seem to be struggling to get those times just at the moment. Seems to be nearly a second away from what I know he's capable of. So maybe track conditions or dirty air playing a factor here, as we see him drop back a little bit from Sub-Zerox there. So potentially just trying to get a clean run, I think. This will be his hot lap though now.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye out on Fast AF Gamer, see what he can pull out. Is he going to break into those 1 minute 16s? Of course, the race pace is expected to be much slower. You are going to be in tune for 45 minutes of on-track action, no mandatory pit stops inside this championship. But tyre wear is accelerated, so they are going to have to try and manage those tyres as best as possible. Currently on board with Fast AF Gamer, and we can see him through that chicane in third gear, carrying lots of speed through it. DRS is open through this left-hander, so that car looking pretty planted and maintaining third gear, not having to drop down into second through that.
Bit of debris there, actually, Murphy.
Oh, just on the left-hand side of the chicane, was it? On the big chicane.
Yeah,
so,
that's right, yeah.
Somebody potentially losing a front wing there. Has to obviously break down into second for the almost hairpin. And just 2 corners to go. We can see DRS fully open. Not quite expanding into 6th gear. Carries himself through the final section there. Into third. Little wiggle from the back end as pointed out. And he's half a second almost away from his race pace at the moment. See him there just running wide on turn 1. That is one thing that these drivers are going to have to be careful of. Track limits are enabled, so running wide on turn 1 will give you a slowdown penalty. We'll have to keep on monitoring throughout the race on who's got penalties where. I will expect some penalties to be apparent on this one come the end of the race. Also something to look out for, I don't know whether or not it's worth mentioning, but eMotorsports has had a couple of false starts lately. He's going to have to try and pace himself, otherwise he's going to land himself with 20 seconds worth of penalty, and that's going to really punish him, I think. So
yeah, I think particularly with the 2-stop strategy, if that is the case, a 20-second penalty is going to be killer around here.
Yeah, we'll expect to see him right down at the bottom of the running order, and for what it's worth, from that false start, I mean, he is running with a pad, so he's got a button assigned for his clutch and his brake, I think, so it's just a case of maybe getting a little bit too early. We saw it in the GT3s last week, I think it was, along with Fast AF Gamer, also picking up a 20-second penalty. Didn't hurt his standings too much, but have to wait and see. Looks as though Fast AF Gamer and Lunar Zodiac are going to make this one on the front row. We're currently tracking Bruce Law around, though. He's one of the guys that can change this. Of course, Fast AF Gamer still remaining out on track and trying to push himself as hard as he can to make sure he secures that pole position and the bonus point that will go along with it.
Again, I think we just saw a little bit of debris on track there, so whether that was the car in front of Matthew just taking out one of those little bollards there on the inside, and you do have to watch that. The cars will pick up damage if they clip those bollards on the inside. It's not severe, but it does affect the front aero on the car.
Yeah, it's enough to knock out your front wing, that's for sure, and that is really going to upset the balance of the car. Not the highest downforce track on the calendar, but it's definitely going to make turning in much harder. So we're just coming to the end of qualifying now. Looks as though Fast AF has secured his pole position. He's the only driver remaining out on track, so this one is just for glory. He's going to bring it across the line, and we're going to see an improvement. There isn't this time, so that is our qualification session over. Let's have a quick run through the driver roster. Fast AF Gamer gets pole position with Lunar Zodiac joining him on the front row. Bruce Law makes an improvement towards the end. He gets into third place, so second on the row alongside Taijo. eMotorsports does enough for fifth place with Sub-Zerox in sixth and Rock G at the back of the pack. So as mentioned, 45 minutes of racing to come. Drivers are going to have 2 minutes to set their cars up and get themselves prepared for that race. Race strategies are going to prove vital for this one. Just to make sure that they adjust tyre pressures maybe get themselves set up for any damage repairs that come in. Try and shorten any required pit stops as much as possible. So we take a little run through our current grid. Worth noting that Rock G, Bruce Law, identifiable Bruce Law with the red mirrors and top T-bar, Rock G with the neon yellows. All of the drivers in pretty easy to recognise liveries, and just those two opt in for that Vazmak livery. So 56 seconds maximum before we get ready for the lights here at Zolder.
Yeah, just a quick update on drivers that are missing. So we do have Dirk Diggler, CMC and Speedy Gonhog all missing today. So the grid's looking a little empty. We believe the summer holidays are playing a part in that as well. That and Hangover, I believe. So...
Yeah, CMC has suffered a lot of woes really in this championship, yet to score a point unfortunately. So let's hope that he can get himself back on track, maybe without that hangover, come next week and finally secure a point inside this championship. Hopefully a few more. There are 7 drivers on grid, so 17 points on offer for today's grid. First place, of course, securing 35 points. Then it's 30, 27, 25, 23, 20 and 17. But we're syncing up and ready for the lights here at Zolder. Keep an eye out on Fast AF Gamer in that red car, and they're away. Looked as though there may have been a false start there. I'm not too sure. We're going to have to check that once we get settled into the race. But as we approach the first corner, Rock G just running ever so slightly wide. He's going to have to be careful of the artificial grass. But Fast AF Gamer leads to Lunar Zodiac with Bruce Law in 3rd, Immortalis in 4th and Taijo in 5th. And Sub-Xerox sticking in that 6th position with Rock G at the back of the grid. So Lunar Zodiac will have his DRS open now, trying to chase it. And have we had an off from Bruce Law, it seems? Not too sure. We can see him there just behind Sub-Xerox's yellow liveried Remco. So perhaps just running a little bit wide. I wonder whether or not that was turn 3. Just getting himself into the gravel pit, but he makes that pass pretty easy, it seems, on the inside into the big chicane. And that rear end looking pretty lively from Bruce Law. It's going to come away from him again, I think.
Big lock-up, though.
Huge lock-up, and he finds himself off the track, so he's going to have to chase down that position. In fact, he's going to have to work it all the way from the rear of the grid. Uncharacteristic mistakes from Bruce Law. We do know that he was watching the Formula 3 race just before this one, and I bet he'll be kicking himself through that, especially if he loses his championship lead over this one. So Fast AF Gamer continues to lead from Lunar Zodiac with Immortalis in 3rd. Taijo is in 4th place. And then we've got around about a 5-second gap to Sub-Xerox with Rock G and Bruce Law trailing right behind. So Fast AF Gamer is going to try and expand his gap to Lunar Zodiac. We've seen the differences in qualification pace is pretty minimal. And Lunar Zodiac is going to want to try and keep in and around Fast AF Gamer. Come the time that this race settles down, Immortalis getting super wide there, picking up all sorts of dirt on those tyres, and that's going to allow Taijo to pass on through into the small chicane.
Really well held though. I'm very, very surprised he didn't completely lose the car at that point.
And he's going to have to watch himself over the next couple of turns though until those tyres clear off. Looks as though he's risen to the challenge. We see Taijo there just getting a little bit of front end bop on that blue liveried car.
Fastest lap put in by Taijo last time round.
It's going to be interesting to see how this one progresses. Taijo is able to push pretty hard, and if he can stay in and amongst, there's plenty of walls to catch you out around this Zolder circuit, especially once the tyres start to go off and you start to lose a little bit of grip. So easy to make a mistake, pick up a contact, and then all of a sudden you're returning into the pit. So it'll be crucial for these drivers to try and stay in and around Fast AF Gamer just to make sure that they can capitalise on any pickup in position. Bruce Law, meanwhile, has made his way past Rock G, so he now sits in 6th place after an uncharacteristically bad start from him. Usually hooks up his first lap. It hasn't been the case this time around, and he sits 13.2 seconds behind our current race leader. Next on the picking order for him, though, is Sub-Zerox, who we're currently tracking around the circuit. Bruce will be waiting for his time to shine, and this is going to be the one. It seems Sub-Zerox making the exact same mistake that we saw from iMotorsports that last time around. It is a bit of a clench your buttocks and throw it in on that right-hander. You really have to trust the grip of the car, and it looks as though we maybe put a little bit too much trust in that grip.
Yeah, it's Erst corner, I believe, and it's such a difficult corner to get right. You've got to make sure that you don't hit the aero. As we see Mortalis going around there.
Yeah, lost the rear end coming out of the second chicane, and he's now going to lose grip of Taijo, it seems. Finds himself 6 seconds behind, and now he's going to have Bruce Law for company sniffing at his gearbox. So this one's going to be interesting to watch. It's not going to be an easy pass for Bruce Law, but he's going to be riding behind him now in the draft with the DRS open. Let's see what he can do into the braking of turn 1. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon, it's into the final turn.
So, yeah, Murphy, it's going to be difficult now. Like you said, he's behind him. Dirty are playing a big part on this Zolder track. Seems very wide across the pit line, but the rest of the track actually isn't very conducive to passing.
There's a few different spots. It's really under braking, it seems, in my experience, to be able to pass on this one, and that puts a lot of trust in the car that's ahead of you, just to make sure that they don't turn into you if you are making that pass under braking. But Bruce Law now is going to try and ride the draft. Doesn't look as though he's going to have any opportunity at this time going into the small chicane. Let's see what they can do on the run up to the second. This is where we saw iMotorsports lose it on the exit of this chicane last time around. Hopefully he'll be able to fare a little bit better this time, cutting the nose off it pretty perfectly. And he's kept the car on the track this time. It's going to be a bit of a dogfight, it seems. This one's going to mature into a stunning display, I think, if I know these two drivers as well as I do. Fast AF Gamer, meanwhile, has pulled up a 3.3 second lead to Luna Zodiac. Then you've got to look 5 seconds back to the third place of Taijo. Taijo is actually going to be, challenging for the championship lead if he continues to put these good runs together. Fast AF Gamer is only 1 point behind him, but Bruce Law, if he doesn't get past iMotorsports, is potentially going to start to lose grasp of his championship lead going into the next race. He is going to remain top of the top of the championship table, I think, but it's definitely going to make it interesting as iMotorsports goes around and Bruce Law has to correct himself there just to make sure he doesn't collide. Don't think there was any contact, so Bruce Law moves up into 4th place. iMotorsports drops down into 5th. It seems as though iMotorsports' mistakes is really costing him here.
Sub-Zero just behind as well, just at the same point, just behind him as well.
So a lot of drivers getting caught out by that Be Brave right-hander. You really do have to chuck it in, especially as the DRS is open. You can get away usually without any braking going into that one, and I wonder whether or not they're maybe just making the mistake of leaving the DRS open because they're not touching the brakes. Maybe it's that, maybe it is just getting the power down, differential settings, maybe playing a factor into this one, and they're just lighting up the rears and spinning it round. It's going to be interesting to see how this affects their tyre wear. But we switch on over to our current race leader, Fast AF Gamer, now leading the charge with a 4.6 second lead to Luna Zodiac behind him. Looking to dominate this race.
What you said before about getting under braking is definitely the preferred tactic for Fast AF Gamer. The late braking that he's putting in on some of the chicane corners seems to be, I think, where he's picking up most of his time in some of these sectors.
You can see him there as well. His car just seems to look planted going through the chicanes, and it's a testament to our 17-year-old drivers' setups. He really does seem to have them locked in, must obviously spend a lot of time honing them to his abilities, and for such a young driver, a lot of ability on track. Has got some experience in racing in the real world, so that obviously paying dividends. But our young South African driver, currently residing in Scotland, really positive part to the community, not just with his race victories and his challenge for the championships, but also for helping out some of our less experienced drivers. He continues to lead the charge with 4.8 seconds now lead to Lunar Zodiac as he maybe tries to balance out his pace. Flip on over to Taijo 1212, who finds himself in a bit of a comfortable position here. He's 5 seconds behind Lunar Zodiac, but he's got 7 seconds lead to the 4th place of Bruce Law, so he just needs to maybe keep his pace consistent now, push where he can, and I think a 3rd place finish for him will do his championship standings the world of good. Just needs to make sure he doesn't make any mistakes with 36 minutes remaining in this session.
I think with the way the standings currently look, just from looking at the points, you've got 157 for Bruce, 133 for Taijo, and 132 for Fast As Gamer. So with the race finishing as it does now, if the standings remain as they are now, it'd be a very close battle for the top spot.
Yeah, it's definitely
going to. I think Bruce will still
have
it. Yeah.
Bruce Law, if he finishes in 4th place, he'll get 25 points. So onto his current 157, that'll put him on 182. Taijo, meanwhile, in fact, let's have a look at Fast AF Gamer. Fast AF Gamer currently on 132. He's going to get 35 points for the victory if he gets it, plus the bonus point for qualifications. That'll put him on 36 points, and that'll put him on, what will it be, 138 it'll be, plus the bonus point for qualification. And if he manages to pick up the fastest lap, it'll put him on
that's 178, I believe.
Yeah, 179 if he picks up the bonus point. So it is going to be pretty close coming into week 7, that's for sure.
And I think Taijo's the same. He's going to be around the 178, 179 mark. So it could be a tied 2nd place.
Could well be. And don't forget, folks, looking at the calendar, next week we're going to be going over to Portugal for the very tricky Algarve circuit. This one, we've said it a few times throughout the Formula Renaults about tyre punishers, but let me assure you that the Algarve GP will absolutely destroy tyres if setups aren't honed or if drivers don't take it easy. Really tricky circuit to try and balance out over a 45-minute period, so it's going to be really interesting going into week 7, that's for sure, especially if it finishes as it does.
Yeah, much more important on the suspension travel, and very important on aero setup at that circuit. So
yeah, really high aero circuit around the Algarve, so that also means that any mistakes, if you lose that front wing or you cause any damage to the rear, you're really going to struggle. So it's all about consistency inside this Formula Renault Championship, and at the moment Fast AF Gamer looks mighty consistent, maintaining his 5.5 second lead to Lunar Zodiac there or thereabouts. And they are.
I think I've just seen a quick change in the standings there. I think Sub-Zero's managed to push his way up to 5th spot, so potentially another spin there from Immortalis that was just off camera.
Perhaps, yeah. Well, let's have a look where it looks as though he's just coming up to turn 1 now, so I wonder whether or not that was at the, potentially at the, I'm going to refer to it as a hairpin. It isn't quite a hairpin, or maybe at the final compound of corners. Perhaps.
No, I think you're right. I think it was the as you say, the hairpin section, Blonderberg Bocht, as I believe it's called. Easy for you to say.
Yeah, most definitely easy for a Belgian to say, not quite so much for our ignorant British songs. But Sub-Zerox is making his way up those roster at the moment. He's got a couple of seconds to Immortalis, but Immortalis looks as though his pace is just falling away. We can see that last time around it must have been quite a big spin. Lost out on around about 7 seconds to the guy in front. Rock G finds himself 10 seconds behind Immortalis as well, so it looks as though he's going to be set for a 7th place finish here. But Lunar Zodiac has managed to keep his consistency pretty well. We've seen him at the start of this season, I think I've brought it up a couple of times, really struggling with the setup of the car. But ever since he's put in some practice, or maybe got himself clued up on the setup, really has been able to build upon it. And in fact, the graphic that we see on our screen at the moment is really interesting. Fast AF Gamer, Lunar Zodiac and Immortalis all picking up a false start penalty, so 20 seconds added to their time. Immortalis on the throughout the race has also picked up an additional 4 seconds. So it could well be a race victory from Taijo, so long as he can keep within that position. In fact, perhaps not, as Bruce Law ends up taking up 3rd position from Taijo. Don't think it was a mistake. I think it's just the outright pace. Bruce Law seems to have this car hooked up at the moment and is starting to put in the laps that we expect from him. 19.9 last time around, and not too far away from the race pace of Fast AF Gamer. He needs to try and keep within that 20-second window, and he could well pick up yet another victory here at Zolder GP. We'll have to wait and see. There are 31 minutes remaining, so plenty of racing yet to come here, and anything can happen in that time.
Yeah, I think what we're potentially seeing is at the acute right-hander, Boulderberg Bochter, as we're calling it, just after you come out that section, there's a chicane, a low-speed chicane, but trying to get the power down there as you come into that chicane section and out of that right-hander is very difficult. The tendency to want to spin the rear tyres up is huge. So even if we're not seeing the drivers spin, I think potentially what we're seeing is just a spin up of the rear tyres, and managing to catch it without the car spinning. That in itself is going to drop 0.5, 0.7 per second easily.
Yeah, we see Bruce Law there taking it pretty much perfectly. Didn't hear much spin up from the tyres there. Engine notes seeming pretty well balanced, and it looks as though Immortalis has entered the pits. First guy to pit inside this race, so that's going to put him even further back. Rock G now moves up into 6th position, and Immortalis having a bit of a mare on this one. He looked really well poised in the practice sessions. It just hasn't really come off for him as he looks to retire from the race. So that is Immortalis out of the running for points today. He's going to remain with 30 minutes yet to go. So Rock G sits in 6th place, currently 15 seconds away from Sub-Xerox, who's in 5th. Looks as though Luna has fallen away from the pace. Perhaps a mistake from him. He now sits 10.5 seconds behind Fast AF Gamer, and Bruce Law, more importantly, is sat within that 20-second window where, if he manages to maintain that, will pick up the race victory come the timer in the centre of your screen reaches 0. So keep an eye out on that. Remember that both Fast AF Gamer and Luna Zodiac all have penalties applied for a false start at the beginning of this race.
Yeah, Rock G, as you're saying, I think he's got 20 points coming into this race, so 6th place will pick him up a decent amount of points here.
Another 20, and that's going to boost him right up, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think because of some of the absences that we've got this week, any of the drivers that do manage to finish are going to manage to pick up points. So I'm not quite sure about the retirement from Immortalis there. Potentially, the car was just undrivable and they couldn't finish the race. So
interesting. Rock G moves up to 5th. Looks as though Sub-Xerox has picked up a little bit of damage, it seems. He was just, he's coasting around there, and we can see no front wing on that Remco.
Blue flag.
So he moves right on over under the blue flag conditions, and he's limping that car home to get it to the pits. It's going to be a change in his front wing, and it looks as though, by the way that car's crabbing, that he's got some suspension damage as well. I expect that this one's going to be a long one, and it looks as though it's happened just after the start finish line, so he's got almost a full lap to go with a very damaged car. It's going to really hurt his championship standings, but our South African driver Rock G will be absolutely made up with this opportunity to get even more points. Now currently set with 23 points if he finishes where he does. And Bruce Law now just about to pass over Sub-Xerox. As Sub-Xerox comes into the pits, he's going to have to make sure he makes that pit lane approach with caution. There is a wall just waiting for you, a really slow chicane to try and manoeuvre as you come into the pit lane here at Zolder. Looks as though Taijo also entering the pits as well. He ends up overtaking Sub-Xerox just before the pit lane entry, so absolutely flying on his way into the pits.
That might be one for the stewards, that, Murphy. I mean, I'm not quite sure what the regulations state on overtakes in the pit lane, on the entry to the pit lane. We might have to go to to Charlie and ask. That could be one for the stewards' inquiries.
I think, judging from the maximum speed that Sub-Xerox was able to come into, I think it was perfectly fine. I don't think there was any contact, and it was a pretty safe manoeuvre from Taijo. Looks as though it was a really quick stop as well, so I think he's maybe just come in for a fresh set of rubbers. No damage seemingly on that car, and he gets himself back out. He remains in 4th place, and Rock G is, I think, just coming across the line now, so he's going to find himself maybe 10 or 20 seconds behind him. We'll get a better idea. In fact, no, it's even less than that. 5 seconds behind from Rock G, and Rock G just making an absolutely devastating mistake. Maybe the commentator's curse there, but he loses his front wing, and he's going to have to limp that one home. There's definitely going to be some suspension damage, I think, from the way that he took that one. And that's
an awful place to lose it. It's such a terrible time to try and lose the car, because it high sides like you saw and just darts itself straight into the arm core, and that's a long way to the pit lane.
It is a long way, and to be honest, I think that's possibly the trickiest corner on this entire circuit. Double apex right-hander, and it really can catch you out. The second turning for it, if you're going too fast, you will just understeer straight away, and if you're going at the right speed and get the throttle down too early, you tend to see what we just saw then from Rock G. So he's going to have to limp it home. He may still be able to finish in that 5th position, as we see Bruce Law making his way past him, I think, for the 2nd time now. Bruce Law is still within that 20-second window to be able to pick up this race victory here. I think Fast AF Gamer is going to push extremely hard come the end of this session, provided he's got the tyres, so we'll have to wait and see how this one plays out.
Yeah, he's currently lapping a little bit slower than Luna Bruce Law here. 121 and 120.8, so not really reining that gap in on the last couple of laps, but has seen that gap drop from around 10 seconds between Luna and Bruce down to about 6 seconds, so he is slowly but surely reining that in, and certainly with the amount of time we've got left in within the race here, it's not beyond the limits. It's whether the tyres can hold up.
I think it's worth noting, Lecky, that Bruce Law actually made it through a few back markers, which could explain the lap time that he put in last time around. We saw him coming past the sort of damaged car of Rock G, so he's going to have approached that one with caution, but I think he also made a pass through Taijo as well, which, although I know Taijo would have moved over under those blue flag conditions, it is going to affect his pace ever so slightly, so that could be the second or so's difference that we've seen in his lap times. Expect those to come down next time around, but he has now just slipped outside of that 20-second window, but he looks to be pushing pretty hard. We can see it dropping away now through each section here of Zolder, and he's definitely going to be pushing for that race victory in the final 23.5 minutes remaining of the session.
Yeah, I think that tyres are starting to come into effect now. Most of the guys haven't yet pitted. I think Taijo is one of the quicker runners that has pitted, and you can see that in his lap times with the 120 still being put in. The rest of the guys still struggling to get it back into the 119s and out the 120s now. So I suspect tyres are starting to fade, and the guys are going to want to consider pitting if they're on a one-stop strategy. I don't suspect we'll see people push it all the way throughout the race. Maybe a little bit further into the race, potentially just try and see if they can get the very last little bit out the tyres that they're on. But I suspect it's going to be a quick splash of fuel tyres and straight out.
I can imagine, like that Bruce Law and Fast AF are going to try and do it on a no-stop here. I think if they would have come in for tyres, they may well have done it whilst... I think Fast AF Gamer, especially coming in for tyres around this position, as we see Rock G now exiting the pits. Long pit stop from him. Obviously some extensive damage from that collision coming out of turn 2. Well, it looks to be Taijo. It is, of course. Taijo currently flying around, so he continues to sit in 4th place, around about 47 seconds away from Bruce Law at the moment.
Inconsistency in some of his lap times though. 1:24 the last time round, and that was a warm lap. So
interestingly, Bruce Law comes into the pits. That could well be a tyre change, as Lecky predicted. This could be him pushing now till the end. He's going to make sure that he doesn't pick up any damage, as he could potentially, thinking about it, the amount of laps that are remaining, could well opt for the soft tyre here if he's got a setup already made for it, and that will give him a big advantage. Dependent on the track temperatures. I imagine that he's not going to want to take the gamble, and he's actually opted. In fact, I beg your pardon, only one compound of tyres available for these Formula Renners. It is just a slick tyre. So
I think it's just pressure changes, isn't it? So in order to try and maintain that the amount of pressure within the tyre and keep the rubbers a little bit warmer for a little bit longer, you've got to balance that tyre pressure. Or will he go for the grip? I think he's still got the same choice to make in terms of lap time or trying to push now. Still 20 minutes left in session, so about half the race to go.
Yeah, I think this is going to potentially change Fast AF Gamer and Luna Zodiac's approach to the race. I imagine that even if Fast AF Gamer was planning on a pit stop, Luna Zodiac now coming into the pits, so he decides to make the move. I think Fast AF Gamer now, based upon the 20-second penalty that he sits with, I know if I was him, provided that there's some rubber left on those tyres, I'd probably be wanting to try and stick it out now till the end, because he's going to have a pretty substantial lead once Luna Zodiac and Bruce Law are back on track and ready to compete with him. So finds himself currently around about 30 odd seconds, I think, 60 seconds lead almost to Bruce Law, so that gives him 40 seconds to play with, and it just depends how much lap time he's going to lose once these tyres start to give way.
He's being kept in that pit box though, so it does potentially look like he's got damage, and that could well be engine damage from an open radiator. That's quite a long pit stop considering.
Yeah, potentially just a little bit. I don't think it was anything suspension related, because it wasn't that long, but maybe just a little bit of engine or gearbox damage, and that allows Bruce Law to come into second place. So Luna Zodiac, interesting, has been the faster lap driver between these two, I think, through the majority of laps. So Luna Zodiac may be able to rein this one in, provided he can get on track, get himself set up and back into the flow of things. But it's going to be interesting when we start to approach the final few minutes of this race. Fast AF Gamer, though, continues with a 58-second lead, and it is building. So Fast AF Gamer doesn't seem to be losing much pace now, as we see Sub-Zero currently battling with Rock G, it seems.
Almost contact though.
And it is a fight for position, so these drivers will be pushing hard for this 5th place. Remember, 5th place will equal 23 points, and that will do both of the drivers a whole lot of good in what is quite a short standings in the Formula Renault. Rock G just getting the small chicane completely wrong. That's going to result in a slowdown, but I think he's going to take the time penalty and continue to push out on track. The approach
definitely both these guys pushing. They both made a very similar mistake. So Rock locked up a little bit and pushed through the first part of that chicane, and Sub-Zero just followed him.
Let's see how it materialises on the run up to the hairpin. Sub-Zero just having a little look around the outside. Rock G having to go defensive, and it's going to continue as a bit of a dogfight, this one. Rock G trying to adjust his line so that he doesn't give the draft to Sub-Zero, but Sub-Zero looks as though he's coming into the pit, so maybe that battle ending shortly. Sub-Zero's second pit, I believe, of the race, and that's going to allow Rock G to come on through. I wonder if that one's for tyres, because I couldn't spot any damage to Sub-Zero's car, and it looked as though he was pushing pretty hard.
Unless there was minor contact and he just clipped that front wing. Depending on how the guys have got the car set up here, there's a tendency to want to get the car to understeer a little bit, so you don't get the over rotation on the undulations. It's not the smoothest track here in Belgium, so those bumps can cause a bit of an issue, and quite a lot of elevation changes, even though there's not a massive amount of altitude. So you've just got to be aware of that, and I think that's potentially going to catch more of the drivers out the more they go through the tyres.
Yeah, there are, as you've just seen, Rock G just managing to avoid the sleeping policeman on the entrance to the chicanes as well. That can really unsettle the car, as you want to try and cut the nose off those chicanes. Those bumps can unsettle the car and send you into a bit of a tailspin. But we now track Taijo 1212 around. He's just 3 seconds behind Lunar Zodiac at this point. In fact, it's got even shorter. It looks as though Lunar Zodiac may just be struggling a little bit for pace. Maybe it's just the section that he was approaching. But Fast AF Gamer is also into the pit, so he's not able to make that zero-stop strategy work. And as we see, it looks as though was that Lunar Zodiac having a really heavy collision. It was going so well for him. 16 minutes remaining of the session, and that's going to be an extensive pit stop if he's able to get that car back to the pits. You can see how much damage it's got. Really heavy impact there. And that's going to, it looks as though he is going to try and limp it home and get it into the pits. He can, of course, score some serious points still, because he has got such a high lead to the drivers at the back in 5th and 6th position. It's just, he's got around about half a circuit to try and navigate around. So Fast AF Gamer continues to get himself back out on track ahead of Bruce Law. Bruce Law now 21.2 seconds behind the race leader at the moment. Remember, there is a 20-second penalty to be applied to Fast AF, so that is the one to watch as Bruce Law just slips into the 19-second range. And we see Rock G there making it past Lunar Zodiac just to unlap himself, so Rock G continues to be a back marker there. That one wasn't for position.
Yeah, I think with Luna, he's definitely going to want to try and get this car back to the pits. He's had such a terrible time so far this season, the Formula Renaults. Only one race finish. He only scored points on the standings once so far this season, which was, I believe, the last round at Bugatti, where he actually, he did quite well. He came 5th there. So he's going to want to try and pick the points up, even if it does mean that he's got to limp it for a considerable amount now. I don't think Rock's going to catch him. He's too far back.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Luna is in the pits. It's going to be a long pit stop, I think, to repair the damage, because I know for a fact, just from the way that the car was crabbing, that there is suspension damage to that car. So it is going to be a long one, but I think with a 2-minute lead to Rock G, he's still going to keep it on track and potentially manage to maintain that 4th position. So in line for 25 points here, and he may be able to make some adjustments, maybe put it onto the do or die setting and push for that fastest lap to try and pick up a bonus point. We know that he's got it in him. But Fast AF Gamer is on fresh rubbers, and he is managing to extend his lead above Bruce Law outside of that 20-second window, currently holding a 21.2 second lead ahead of the driver from Cheshire, currently sat at the top of the standing. So it's definitely going to be interesting come the end of this one. 14 minutes remaining on track. We are, of course, on lap 23, so quite a few laps to go. Lunar Zodiac is still in the pits, and if he doesn't get out soon, it looks as though Rock G is going to overtake him. I think Lunar Zodiac, though, does have the pace in him in his lap times to try and get around Rock G. Currently lapping around about 5 or 6 seconds quicker on average, I think, than the South African driver. So definitely one to watch when he does get out. We're about to see Rock G pass him, I think.
It's going to help Bruce's points here. I mean, the further he can get up the race leaderboard here today, the further he can try and extend his championship lead. So he's certainly going to want to try and catch up to Fast AF. But with that gap sitting around the 22-23 second mark, it's certainly not worth pushing the car to the point of trying to close that 2-second gap if it means you're going to 105%. It's just not worth it for the standings.
Meanwhile, take a look at that last lap time of Fast AF Gamer, managing to put in a 1:18.455. That is quicker than the qualification pace of most drivers, and it is the current fastest lap of the session. So that will be a triple crown of points from Fast AF Gamer if he manages to get the victory, and it'll be the second time that he's achieved it. Last time around, he was able to get the pole position, race victory, and the fastest lap, and he's currently on course as well to do that again. So he really has laid down the gauntlet to Bruce Law. Basically, come get me. Lead currently 4.5 seconds, and it is gaining. So Fast AF Gamer, since his since his pit stop. In fact, it goes even quicker again, a 1:17.9 that last time around. So the pace of Fast AF Gamer just looks unmatchable at the moment with the rest of the guys on track, and he's currently setting himself up for a race victory here at Zolder. Fantastic drive from the 17-year-old.
Just got, I think that's Fast AF behind him there, but Rock's just actually passed Luna in the pit, so an incredible pit stop from Luna. That potentially is the longest pit stop that I've seen. Like you said, worth it for the points, definitely, but current lap time is in excess of 4 minutes, so sorry, in excess of 3 minutes, so I think that is possibly the longest pit that we've seen so far this season, definitely.
I mean, it's not unachievable. As I mentioned, the pace of Lunar Zodiac with a fresh car, so long as he's able to keep his head, is looking pretty good, but he's only got 11 minutes to do so, and he is going to have to pull in those sort of 1 minute 20s, 1 minute 19s to be able to rein in on Rock G's lead here. Rock G will be made up with a 4th place finish if he's able to get it. He's currently sat in 5th place in the championship standings. 4th place will get him 25 points. So that will put him just behind Dirk Diggler when Dirk Diggler is able to return to the action. And it'll put him in good stead come the end of the season, that's for sure.
He certainly will be in with the shout of stealing that spot from Dirk Diggler coming into the last round. So that's going to be a definite battle that Rock's going to want to try and perform in. Rock, I know, obviously, races in another community, so I'm sure that'll be bragging rights when he goes back.
Yeah, he is representing our good friends at Race Space. Active member within that community, but also an active member within Flux Motorsport, so the two coming together, and he looks as though he's finally starting to settle into the Formula Renaults a little bit as the season progresses. Luna just getting a little bit wide. We've seen so many cars getting that corner wrong. Luna Zodiac maybe pushing that extra bit harder just to try and chase down Rock G. Currently sat at 18 seconds, that gap, and I think he's picked himself up a time penalty as we go in. We will check those penalties just as we approach the end of this race, but I think the only driver without a penalty so far is Sub-Zero. It is indeed, so even Bruce Law's picked up a couple of seconds, and that is going to be crucial. So the gap now needs to be 18. No, I need to go the other way around. It's 22 seconds altogether, and he's currently sat 28 seconds behind. So Bruce Law pretty much has a mountain to climb with 9 minutes and 20 seconds remaining of the session. Looks as though Fast AF Gamer is varying his pace, pushing where he needs to. And we see Luna Zodiac getting very close to that outside wall there. Didn't want to make a mistake because that will cost him. Potentially with some suspension or aero damage, and maybe he has picked it up. Maybe we didn't see the contact, but some contacts there as he seems to be a little bit sloppy.
I think it's just pushing Murphy. At this stage, I think he's got Rock in his sights. He knows that with 9 minutes left in the session and a 3-second difference a lap, it's possible that he'll catch him, but he's going to have to try and push for it. I think the risk that we've got with Luna, which is the same we've got in most races with Luna, is he going to push too hard? It's not that he's not capable, it's just can he keep his composure?
Yeah, so Luna Zodiac, our Australian driver, he is being able to bring his lap times right on down, and we can see that he is able to push. It is just that maybe little lack of concentration or consistency. Hopefully he will still be able to keep on pushing, as his points in the championship standings definitely don't reflect the skill that the driver's got. Fast AF Gamer is now leading to Bruce Law by almost 30 seconds, so it looks as though it's almost in the bag with 8 minutes remaining of this one. Bruce Law holding on to an 18-second lead to the 3rd place of Taijo 12-12, and then we've got to go quite a few minutes back to Rock G. After Taijo, Rock G, Luna Zodiac and Sub-Zerox all having to pit multiple times. As Lecky rightly pointed out, these drivers started to push really hard come the end of it, but none as much so as Fast AF Gamer continuing to expand upon that lead. He also got a 1 minute 17, so it looks as though he is going to pick up the triple threat. of both the pole position, race victory, and the fastest lap, unless somebody can pull something out of the bag in the closing laps of this race. We've definitely seen plenty of action here at Zolder today, and whilst we have got a little gap in this, let me remind you that tonight's GT3 race at Brno is going to be action-packed as well. You can join both myself and the console live on our YouTube channel from 8 o'clock for that one. Those standings looking mighty close in the GT3s. As we see, a little bit of contact there, it seems, from Taijo on a back marker of Sub-Zerox. Puts Sub-Zerox into the gravel and potentially the wall there. I think that one may well go into the stewards, although Sub-Zerox was in blue flag. He isn't obligated to move away coming into a chicane, that's for sure, so we'll have to wait and see what happens from that one. Sub-Zerox.
I think it looked like lock-up there from Taijo. I mean, that was uncharacteristic for the amount of speed that he was taking into that chicane. I don't think any driver's made it stick going in at that speed, so... again, potentially just pressure from nerves with the guy in front. A little bit harder on the brakes than he wanted to. Locked up, and then you've increased your braking distance by a good 15 to 20 feet. So potentially a genuine accident there, but still probably got to go to the inquiries from Zero.
Yeah, Sub-Zero ends up going into the pits after that contact between the two. One thing to bear in mind, that Sub-Zero probably had his DRS open. So did Taijo, and Taijo running in the turbulent air of Sub-Zero. So I think that isn't going to help his braking distances. But I think Sub-Zero getting caught up in this one. He is still set for a 6th place finish, provided he gets out on track and comes across the line. So it isn't all doom and gloom for him. He is still going to pick himself up 20 points, and that's going to help catapult him further up the leaderboard and be able to challenge with some of the mid-pack drivers, that's for sure, come the end of the season. But definitely not what we want to see with 5 minutes remaining of the session. FastAF Gamer continuing to put in absolute monster laps, considering the amount of laps that he's put in. We are on lap 30. He's still managing to get sub 1 minute 20 seconds, and that is currently 3 seconds or thereabouts quicker than any other driver on track. So FastAF Gamer proving all of his mettle and really challenging Bruce Law on the championship run with only 2 races to go after this one. So, on the look ahead to the rest of the Flux Motorsport calendar for this week, as mentioned, the GT3s are going to be live and direct from Brno later on tonight at 8 o'clock PM. Then you can look forward to the GT1 race on Thursday. Fortunately, not able to stream that one live, but we will be putting the action up on the YouTube channel as soon as we can. That race is going to be at Catalunya. So keep an eye out on social media for the results from the last race, and also to let you know when the Catalunya race is up and onto the YouTube channel. And then we'll be getting set for race week 7 next week, and definitely all to play for as our seasons start to come to a close.
Yeah, that's right, Murphy. I'll be getting the gloves on and getting the helmet on this evening in our GT3 race at Brno. So if you do jump on the YouTube channel, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Any comments that you've got, as I know all the drivers do, would be greatly appreciated. So do show some support.
Quite right. And as we approach the final 3 minutes of this session, just to let you know the current standings, if you haven't already seen on our social media, in the GT3s, FastAF Gamer is leading that one with 147 points. Then it's St. Barth or Barend with 142 points in second place. And then Bruce Law is in third on 138. So only 9 points separating first and third, and a full grid of drivers on that GT3 session as well. So plenty to play for around a very challenging circuit. So into the closing moments of our Zolder GP here in the Formula Renaults. Bruce Law doesn't look as though he's going to be able to catch FastAF Gamer in the end. He tried his best, but he sits 37 seconds behind the race leader. So it looks as though it's going to go to Fast AF. Taijo's done very well to maintain third position, able to capitalise on the early mistakes of eMotorsports, who has since retired. And then Rock G really sweeping up, it seems, managing to bag a 4th place finish, and he'll be really happy with that. Although he is 4 minutes and 23 seconds behind, looks as though he is going to have a late challenge from Lunar Zodiac, so he is going to have to keep his wits about him if he's going to be able to maintain that one. We are now on the final 2 minutes of this session, so plenty can go wrong, but Lunar Zodiac's pace isn't looking as though he's making big gains. In fact, perhaps he is. I've just seen a little drop away. So we are now tracking Lunar Zodiac around the circuit, just coming into the second chicane. And is he going to be able to make this move count and bag himself 25 points come the end of the checkered flag? We'll have to wait and see. Currently riding in the turbulent area of Rock G. Rock G is definitely slower in terms of the consistent lap pace, but Lunar Zodiac just goes for the wide line there. Looked as though he'd messed up his braking up a little bit. Yeah, just locking it up on the entrance, but he is going to try and make this pass now. Rock G goes defensive, but Lunar Zodiac does it on the outside, makes that pass pretty easy in the end. So 4th place now for Lunar Zodiac. Back over to Bruce Law, in fact back over to Taijo it seems. Thought he was going to come into the pits then, looked as though he had to correct his entrance into that final section. He's going to do enough for 3rd place it seems, unless he has a catastrophic end to this race. We are now going to be approaching the final couple of laps here, depending on where Fast AF Gamer is. We're currently riding along with Taijo, and keep an eye out on the wheel. Remember, he is a gamepad player, so expect some variant compared to some of the other drivers. It looks as though he's got that one a little bit wrong. Commentators cursing it, put him into the wall. I don't think he's at threat of losing his position. Even with damage, he can just try and coast this one around. It doesn't look as though he's lost his front wing there. Maybe it was just a bit of a glitch. He is playing from the Philippines, so maybe his ping rate's suffering. In fact, no, it does look as though he's got some pretty heavy damage, and it looked as though he spun his car around there, so Taijo is going to have to limp it on home. I don't think he's going to be able to finish from the pit lane. It's going to, it may cost him a position as we see Sub-Zero there moving away for the race leader, Fast AF Gamer. He is on his final lap. The timer has counted down with only a couple of corners to go. Fast AF Gamer has put in a stunning display here. We've seen him do the clean sweep even with a false start. 20 seconds will be added onto his time, but that is not going to matter. He sits 38 seconds ahead of the leader as he comes up to the start-finish line and takes the race victory here at Zolder. Fantastic running from him indeed. So Bruce Law is now going to have to try and navigate his way through into second. He's got about half of the circuit to go, but he isn't going to come under any pressure from anybody else. He sits 55 seconds ahead of Taijo, and Taijo has got some pretty substantial damage to try and contend with. So good drive from Bruce Law. He had a frightful start, ended up getting off track and involved with the back markers, navigated his way through those, got himself up into second place after a mistake from Lunar Zodiac, who had a really good race. His split times definitely don't display how good of a race he had. Unfortunately, it was just a race of 2 halves from our Australian. As he crosses the line, that's going to be 4th place from him. Maybe changing once penalties are taken into account. We'll have to wait and see when our standings do come up. And here they are, race victory from Fast AF Gamer. Even with his 20-second lead, he ends up 23 seconds ahead of Bruce Law in second place. Taijo limps it home in the end, 19.5 seconds back from Bruce Law. Rock G ends up taking 4th place in the end, and that's because of the time penalties incurred from Lunar Zodiac, who does enough for 5th place. Sub-Zerox in 6th, and Immortalis unfortunately DNF'd from a retirement for that one.
Such a shame.
So that concludes our race here at Zolder. You can, as we've already mentioned, join us live on our YouTube channel from 8 o'clock tonight to catch all of the action from the GT3 race at Brno. And thank you very much for joining us here, Lecky. Fantastic racing there. What did you make of that?
Oh, absolutely wonderful. I mean, spins, thrills, spills. I think that race had it all. Really great to see Matt then getting toe-to-toe, challenging Bruce for the championship. So definitely want to watch coming into the last 2 rounds here. Can't wait for next week.
Yeah, he's going to be made up with that fastest lap as well. That is a really quick lap for race conditions, especially considering he got it, I think, around about lap 26. So great run in there from Fast AF Gamer, aka Matthew. Good race win from him. And that is all we've got time for this morning here at Flux Motorsport. I'd like to thank my co-commentator Lecky for all of his efforts through the day. Thank you very much,
Thanks for having me.
And my name's been Murphy. You can join me in tonight's race, but until then, enjoy the race, the rest of the real world racing, and we'll see you live and direct from 8 o'clock. Take care, enjoy your Sunday, and we'll see you then.